All right, what's going on, YouTube? It's your boy Rob from Rob Cologne Radio, coming back at you one more time again. All right, so let's have a conversation about pound for pound. Now, pound for pound is always a very murky conversation when you're talking about mixed martial arts because there is no real defined criteria or what is being used in mixed martial arts for the pound for pound best list. You know, you look at the UFC and how they use the pound for pound list. Then you look at ONE FC. It's right now it's just a mess. And mainly because these guys are not competing in the same arena or they're not competing in the same promotional company, so they don't fight each other. But let's get that behind us. I want to talk a little bit more right away before I get into the pound for pound rankings for the UFC about what pound for pound is, where it came from, and what it really means in its traditional sense. The whole pound for pound list came about because of Sugar Ray Robinson. Back in the day when he competed, he was the most dominant fighter, widely recognized as the best fighter, but it was, he was just a very small guy. But you look at what he did. The guy started out as an amateur, won over 80 fights, finished 60 of those guys in the first round, and by the time he became a pro, he had a 128-0 record at one point in time. But the problem was at the time you had guys like Rocky Marciano, Joe Louis, Joe Wilcock, all these guys, and a whole list of other fighters that, were just too big to even be considered, as competing directly with Sugar Ray Robinson. So you had to give Sugar Ray Robinson his credit as being one of the baddest guys out there, but you can't necessarily say at the time he's the baddest dude walking around because this dude who weighs almost 100 more pounds than him is just going to naturally, have too much of an edge or, have too much weight that he's going to have to give up to actually be competitive in that fight. We've seen it time and time again. We seen it a couple of weeks ago, with a couple of months ago, I believe, with Dustin Poirier and Max Holloway. So they had to give the guy some due, and boxing historians felt like it was disrespectful not to recognize him as a good fighter as he is. At the time, like I said, the heavyweight champ was the baddest dude in the world, and for the most part, that's all people cared about. All right, so now we have a better understanding now of what the pound for pound list is, and the classic definition, as of the best fighters pound for pound. But when we talk about mixed martial arts, when we talk about the UFC, things get real murky. And the reason why things get real murky is because of the weight classes, how the weight classes pan out. A light heavyweight fighter fights at 205 pounds. A heavyweight fighter, I think heavyweight starts from 206 all the way up. So the difference from a heavyweight fighter and a light heavyweight fighter is not that big of a difference. You look at the former, heavyweight champion, and some at the time considered, the number one pound for pound, Daniel Cormier. He beat the current heavyweight champion, but he has lost to the current light heavyweight champion. Like I said, Stipe has no reason to be up there in traditional sense, but when you think about it from that aspect, John Jones is number one pound for pound. So with mixed martial arts, you have to take a whole lot of things and kind of merge them together and then compose your pound for pound list. But Khabib is on the pound for pound list for the traditional sense. Basically saying if you were to take Khabib Nurmagomedov and supersize him, so to speak, he would be competitive or possibly even beat the heavyweight champion. That's kind of what it's saying. But you can actually compare apples to a certain extent when you compare their shared rival or shared competitor, Daniel Cormier, with Stipe Miocic. Stipe got knocked out cold by Daniel Cormier. John Jones, even though, both fights are now looked at as him possibly being on some performance enhancement, drugs, he beat Daniel Cormier twice in the second time in very convincing fashion. So you have no choice but to put him at number one pound for pound at this time. And then you look at the resume. If that factors in, it's no question. If that factors in, you have to start talking about being the greatest ever, possibly. But that's my little 2 cents on it, man. It's your boy Rob from Rob Cologne Radio. I'm out.